Hello, a good Sunday to you. Hope you've had a good weekend so far. I know if you're a Mizzou fan, was not a good Saturday. Hope you've rebounded from that. More importantly, I hope the Tigers can rebound from a pretty awful performance. We'll get into that in one moment. First of all, this is the Bernie Miklasz Show on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing. Please consider subscribing if you haven't. We appreciate your comments. And hit the like button, all those good things. But, the Mizzou videos I've done so far have, gotten good numbers. And so I appreciate that. Tip of the cap, tip of the Mizzou cap here. Well, as you might imagine, I'm not in a real good mood about what happened to Mizzou at Texas A&M yesterday. Just an embarrassment, really, really just humiliated. They were never in the game. 41-10 was the final. It actually seemed worse than that. And yeah, I know the Tigers were the victims of a terrible bit of officiating very early. There was a blatant pass interference. They threw the flag. Then they said there was no pass interference. It was absolutely pass interference, and it wiped out a big play, or wiped out would have been a big gain. And Mizzou had to give up the football. So I hope I got that sequence right. The bottom line is it doesn't matter. You had basically the whole game to recover from that horrible call. And anyone who blames the officials for that disgraceful performance, come on. I'm a Mizzou fan. I'm also objective. I mean, I really want the Tigers to win, but I'm not going to go in the tank and make up excuses. And I don't think I'd say probably 95% of you feel the same way. That was just a brutal performance. It can't be blamed on anybody except Coach Eli Drinkwitz, his staff, and the players. And I always like to do my reading before each game, and there was a piece in the St. Louis paper, the St. Louis website about Saturday morning, like, well, here are the 5 keys to the game. And by the way, I'm not making fun of the piece. Here are the 5 keys of the game for Mizzou to win at Texas A&M. And there was one key that was left out. And pardon my snark, there was one key that was left out, the very important key, maybe the most important key to victory. You actually have to show up. You actually have to show up and play instead of whatever the heck that was. You have to show up and you have to compete. And you got to compete like a bunch of madmen, right? That's the first key. And Mizzou obviously was a no-show. And I don't know about you all, but I was really irritated by a lot of the stuff that was going on last week. And, you had Luther Burden III, famously now in an interview or two talking about no respect. And, we should be more appreciated. We should be highlighted on ESPN's College Game Day, so on and so forth. And there's been an underlying tone of that going on in Columbia a lot with this program. And here's the day: you want to be on game day. You want to be on ESPN's College Game Day. You want to be highlighted on that. Well, maybe you actually have to show up and actually play the game to the best of your ability, and to give the people of the college football nation outside of Missouri, give them something to make them take notice in a positive way, play at a level where fans all over America are saying, I had my doubts about that Mizzou team, but damn, they're really an outstanding team. You got to earn this stuff. You got to earn this stuff, and you got to earn it every week. Mizzou was ranked, very high at the beginning of the season, top 6, top 7, whatever, top 9 going into this game. And let's be honest about this. Let's be perfectly honest about this. And this applies to a lot of schools that have a big year in the previous season. Mizzou had not earned being a top 10 team. That was all based on what they did last year when they won 11 games. They had a great season. But their ranking in the early weeks of 2024 was not earned. It was not given to them based on how they were playing and how impressive they were No, they needed to reestablish that this was a valid ranking, that this ranking was totally legit. And they've done nothing of the sort. I don't want to talk about the two scrimmages they played against, non-opponents, but Mizzou wasn't impressive against Boston College, got behind 14-3. They weren't in any real trouble in the second half, but still, we all agree. We all said this. Well, they're going to have to play better. Okay, it's a nice win. It goes in the books as a nice win, but they're going to have to play a lot better. Then came the Vanderbilt game, and they didn't play well at all. And I don't think they really played well in any area, except maybe running the football. But, I don't want to get into the particulars of that. We're going to talk about some season theme aspects of this team in terms of the performance. We're going to get into that in a minute. But Mizzou didn't play well. They were very fortunate to win that game in overtime at home against Vanderbilt. Now, listen, I think Vanderbilt's a better team than what they have been getting credit for, and I actually said that going into the Mizzou game. I did not think that Mizzou would have to hang on for dear life and count on the Vandy kicker missing a chippy. But still, there's a tendency for everyone to think Vanderbilt's like this. You're just going to go in there and, they're going to come into your building and it's like homecoming and, it's a designated victim and you're going to beat them by 30 or whatever. The fact that Vanderbilt beat Alabama yesterday, I think that really opened some eyes. But the point is Mizzou had them at home and they didn't play well at all. They were really, really lucky to escape that game. So anyway, the 4-0 was a flimsy 4-0 in my opinion. 4-0 is good. 4-0 counts. A win is a win is a win. I get all that. But we all know, especially after the BC game combined with the Vandy game, that Mizzou was not playing all that well. There was nothing to suggest this is a really good team. What we thought was we're looking at them and saying, well, they have to play better. They got to play a lot better. And I think most of us thought, including me, well, they'll play much better. They will, in fact, get better. Well, they got worse. And here's the number one question. What the heck did they do during the bye week? What was going on? You had 2 weeks to get ready for Texas A&M. It was your first road game. And you knew as a program, number one, you knew a couple things. Number one, you got to play a lot better. You got to raise the level of your performance across every area, okay? You got to play better. What do we got to do to play better? Let's get to work on it hard. Let's get after it. We got to show people, including ourselves, that we can find a higher gear. The other thing, and it's an underlying thing, because this gets back to the complaining about no respect and all this stuff. People around the nation were skeptical of Mizzou, and I have no problem with the fact that people were skeptical. Again, you have to earn it anew in the following season. You can't rest on what happened last year and expect everybody to bow down. Everybody was impressed by that. But 2024 presented a new set of challenges, including one which is like, you ain't going to sneak up on anybody. You win 11 games, you end up with a great ranking. Everyone's talking about the program that Eli Drinkwitz has built, the NIL stuff, the recruiting, the transfer portal, all the positives, the facility upgrades. And Mizzou looks like an up-and-coming program. And I'm not saying they no longer look that way. There's still a lot of positives based on everything that happens except playing the game, right? Mizzou's got a lot of momentum, but it doesn't matter if you stink when you play actual play. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if you stink when you actually play football, right? Or you're mediocre or you're unimpressive. The NIL and the facilities and the recruiting and the transfer portal, that's all great stuff. But with all that in place, all the positives in place, in a way we've never seen at Mizzou before, that's why it's even more imperative for you to kind of take advantage of what the coach and others have built. You got to take advantage of it because you now have assets you never had before, and you got to take advantage of it by winning football games and beating good teams and playing better. What good are the facilities and the recruiting and everything else when if you go to Texas A&M and get stopped? And you knew everyone, getting back to my skeptical note, you knew that everyone around the country is like looking at you like, I don't know about them. Are they for real? Is this bogus? the late, great Joe Strauss, my friend and fellow columnist at the Post-Dispatch, used to always put stuff on Twitter when a heavily favored team or a hype team was getting its butt kicked. He'd put fraud alert. And I thought of that yesterday watching Mizzou, and I'm not calling them frauds, but I think a lot of other people are. And there's a lot of legitimate reason for people to be not trust Mizzou football right now as an elite team. So the other stuff that was going on, so I don't know what they were doing for 2 weeks. How can Eli Drinkwitz and that coaching staff and those players have a week to prepare for Texas A&M? And that's what they came up with? That? Really? That. And it doesn't help when, couple things. Doesn't help when the head coach during the week leading into the game was asked about, do you think Texas A&M is playing games with their, the decision on who they're going to start at quarterback, because Connor Wegman has been hurt with a shoulder. The kid that they brought in, who's a totally different style of quarterback, was someone, that, can run the ball, was more of an athlete, could really break you down running the football and doing things like that. And, it was a situation where the idea that this was going to be some type of game time decision, Eli Drinkwitz basically laughed it off. And he pointed out, is like, hey, they've been playing the other kid, and the other kid's won all 3 games and he looks good. And, I think I interpreted, and I'm pretty sure most of you did too, or a lot of you did too, that Eli Drinkwitz was like, in effect, just like dismissing the idea that Wegman would actually start that game at quarterback for Texas A&M. So that leads to the question, were they unprepared for him? Did they get all cocky and assume they were going to see the backup, the running quarterback? Did they prepare as if they would see the running quarterback and not have to worry about your typical prototype pocket quarterback? It kind of looked like that. But the fact that, Eli Drinkwitz, who apparently knows all, including what the opposing coach is thinking, right? He knows. He's smart. He'll tell you he's smart. No, they weren't prepared to see Connor Wegman, and he just carved them up. That's number one. Then you had Brady Cook, the quarterback, through the week. He was asked a pretty innocuous question, one that is like the easiest thing in the world to answer, which is about, hey, Kyle Field, you get about 100,000 people in there down at A&M. Everyone talks about how noisy it is, how loud it is. It's ear splitting. Boy, it's really tough for visiting teams to go in there and blah, 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 blah. To an extent, that's been overrated because Texas A&M's actually under Jimbo Fisher, I'm talking about, they actually lost home games. They weren't as invincible at home. But instead of just sort of doing the thing you should do in those situations, what's number one? What's one of the first rules about giving media interviews, especially if you're a college player? Definitely when you're a college player, any sport, you don't give bulletin board material to the other team. And so Brady Cook, instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, that's going to be a tough environment, and we're preparing for it. We're doing everything we can to be ready for it, because no doubt, man, it's a loud place. But we're looking forward to the challenge. We think we're preparing for it. But yeah, Kyle Field's a tough yard." That's all he had to say, right? That's all he had to say. No, instead, he poo-pooed the idea that it's this loud, intimidating, imposing place. He poo-pooed it, just basically just wouldn't buy. He rejected the narrative, which is just silly. It's just flat out silly. So what did Mike Elko do? Well, Mike Elko did a lot of things with it. He talked about it on his radio show because he knows Texas A&M Aggies fans are listening. And he's basically saying, hey, the quarterback doesn't think you all allowed. They don't think this is a real tough place. They don't see a problem coming into Kyle Field. That sounds like a challenge to me. Bring the noise Saturday. I mean, he said words to that effect. I mean, I read a story about it. I don't remember the quotes, but to that effect. So you gave Mike Elko, Brady Cook gave Mike L something to get his team and his fans riled up. I mean, really fired up. They would have been anyway. I mean, they're number 25 going against number 9. They had all the reasons in the world to be fired up. And Mike Elko's a really good coach, and he's building something, and he's building it quickly. But why didn't Brady Cook just give the typical vanilla answer. What are you doing stirring up the Lions then? How does that help your team? That's number two. Then you had this weird thing with Theo Weiss, the Mizzou wideout. Just a bizarre story. Mizzou claims that when they showed up at their hotel, that there was a blanket, a special A&M blanket in Theo Weiss's room. And what it was, apparently, from the Mizzou angle. Oh, see, they're taunting him. They're taunting us because one of the Texas A&M corners is really, really good, and they nickname him the blanket. And so Theo Weiss shows up at the stadium in the pregame warmups, and he's carrying his blanket around. I mean, once again, Mizzou? What have you won? What have you really won, or what have you really proven in 2024? So you're going to have the coach dismissing the fact that, maybe Mizzou will have to take on Casey Wegman, the pocket passer, rather than the runner, the athlete. He just didn't even give it any thought. Well, we know what's up. They've won 3 in a row with this kid. We know how they're going to prepare for this game. In other words, you ain't going to fool Eli, are you? Well, you did. Number 2, Brady Cook. Number 3, Theo Weiss. So Weiss is out there with this blanket, and kind of looking like I'm not going to call him a name. He's just not real smart. There's just no point in this. Your offense has not been that good. Your passing game especially has not been that good. So what are you doing this for? You're motivated. You were supposedly motivated. You were jacked up to show the world that you deserve to be in the top 10. So why are you waving a blanket around to try to fire up the A&M defense? Mike Elko, after the game, put it on the line. He said, you got to go talk to Eli about that blanket stuff. We had absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't even know what he's talking about. You should ask them. He was implying that Mizzou planted the blanket so they could have this little gimmick to take over to the stadium. If that's true, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I mean, it's spectacularly dumb. If in fact they did that, if in fact Mizzou did something that's stupid, don't know, unless they say, yeah, we were trying a little something, it didn't work. Spectacularly stupid is what that was, if they did it. And the thing about this game is, if Mizzou wanted to show everybody, all the skeptics, all the doubters, hey, no, man, we're legit, and you all need to start paying attention to us. You earn that stuff. You got to earn it, and you got to earn it, and you got to earn it, and earn it, and earn it over and over and over again. You don't earn it by winning a pretty tight game at home against BC, and you don't earn it by barely hanging on against Vanderbilt. You go into Texas A&M and you throw down. You make a statement game. You make a statement game out of it, and you make your case, and you say, all right, we came in here and won pretty convincingly. Y'all got any questions? But they didn't do that. Mizzou got outplayed in every single aspect of the game. The coaching was a rout. It was actually a complete mismatch. We know that. Connor Wegman was terrific throwing the ball and actually was running. No one thought he'd be running because he's coming off the shoulder. Connor Wegman outplayed Brady Cook by 25 miles. The Texas A&M offense put like 512 yards on the Mizzou defense. There was no pressure on Wegman. Texas A&M ran at will. Mizzou could not run it. They could not throw it. They could not block it. I'm not talking about the special teams as much, but Mizzou was absolutely dominated in every area of the competition, especially at the line of scrimmage, especially at the quarterback spot, and across the board, running the ball, stopping the run. It was a rout. It was an absolute rout. It was a no-show performance. And there's a couple things I wanted to point out. And one of the reasons I hope some Mizzou fans have been coming here is they know that I give them the good stuff as far as the research that I do that tell us a lot. And there's a bunch I could talk about, but I want to kind of I want to talk about two things in particular: the Mizzou defense and the pass rush, or the lack of pass rush that we saw Saturday at Kyle Field. And I want to look at it from the context, like, okay, Batoon, the new defensive coordinator, took over for Blake Baker, who went to LSU. All right, one thing Blake Baker and the Mizzou defense always had, they had the pass rush coming. And I know they lost some players to the NFL and all this stuff, but they always had the pass rush coming. They were always in your face. I mean, they get these quarterbacks running around, and it was really impressive. It's not there. It's not there this year. Here and there, yes, but in terms of like a component of your team you can count on. Now, there's only one way I can do this, which is to give you the numbers. And I know it's boring at times to hear a bunch of numbers. I'll try to be selective here. Last season, Mizzou was number 6 among Power 5. It was Power 5 then. Mizzou was number 6 Power 5 teams as far as sacks per game. This year they're 40th. They went from a little over an average of 3.2 sacks per game or whatever it was. Now they're 1.8. And you know which defense leads Power 5, Power 4? I'm gonna just say Power Conference. You know what defense leads the Power Conference in sacks against FBS competition? That would be LSU, over 4 sacks per game. That's Blake Baker's defense. Mizzou's not getting the pass rush under the new guy. Whether he has something to do with it, or how much he has something to do with it, I don't know. I know the broadcasters were harping yesterday on ABC about, it's like, well, I don't understand. Connor Wegman's just setting up, having all the time in the world. Why isn't he sending extra people? Well, why isn't Mizzou going after him? Why are they allowing him to be so comfortable? These are all very, very, very fair questions. So the pass rush ain't there. It's nothing like it was last year. That doesn't mean it can't get better if you try some new tactics, but there is a huge difference. There's a huge drop off the pass rush, the Mizzou defense, of that 2023 compared to 2024 so far. There's no doubt about it. Their sack percentage last year, 8th best in the country. Dropbacks that result in sacks, 8th best in the country. This year so far, 38th in the country. Big drop off, no question about it. And if you look at the pass defense and see, these things basically are connected for obvious reasons. So if you look at the pass defense, the completion percentage is well, actually, that's I had the wrong thing here. Again, I got a lot of notes and I apologize. If you look at yards per attempt against the Mizzou defense, last year they're 23rd in the nation among Power Conference teams, 23rd in the nation. This year so far, 53rd. All right, 53rd, 23rd to 53rd in yards per passing attempt from the opposing quarterback. If you look at, here's another one. If you look at passing plays that are busts for the offense, in other words, like, the success rate on passing plays against a Mizzou defense is up this year. The big play component of the passing game against a Mizzou defense is up last year. And the other thing, what Sports Info Solutions calls bust plays. Last year, Mizzou was 29th in the nation, power conferences, in terms of when teams tried to pass against them, the percentage of those passing plays that were busts. All right. There's a big fall off this year so far. So last year's 29th nationally. This year so far, 54th. So if you look at this, it's cause and effect. They're not getting the pass rush. They're not sending enough guys. The opposing quarterbacks have way too much time to throw. And the secondary's having a much more difficult time of covering them. And they're giving up more big plays. And they're not causing enough bust plays when the other team tries to throw it. So there's that. I wanted to move on from that. Now let's talk about Brady Cook, and let's talk about the passing game. It's a huge drop off. And it's a huge, huge drop off in even his running ability. And I've got so many stats here. I'm going to try to be disciplined and pick out the ones that I liked. And keep in mind, there are 69 power conference teams this season. And these are games only against FBS teams, not the blood donors. For example, yards per attempt. Last year, the Mizzou passing game was 8th best in the nation. You know where they are this year so far among 69 teams? The Tigers are 57th in yards per passing attempt. My friends, that is a huge, huge decline. When, you go from 8th best in the nation power conference, and now you're 12 spots from the bottom at 57th, that's awful. That is absolutely awful. The accuracy. Let's talk about accuracy. It's not just the completion percentage. Last season, when Brady Cook threw a pass, the on-target rate was the 16th best among power conference quarterbacks. This year, you know where they are? You know where he is? They are, because he's their quarterback. There's 69 teams, I repeat, power teams. Mizzou, their on-target passing rate is 64th out of 69. Last year, they were 16th. That is just a glaring problem. You wonder why the offense isn't doing as well. The receivers are really good. The running backs, not yesterday, the offensive line was bad, but the running game has been really good in the aftermath of Cody Schrader. The accuracy is a huge issue. The downfield throwing, once again, is a huge issue. Last year, in terms of I won't get into that. This is a good stat. They're not the passing attempts that they're throwing in the air. The average depth on those attempts is down from last year. Last year, in terms of big play pass completions, last year, they're called boom plays by Sports Info Solutions. Last year, Mizzou, 7th best in the nation with a boom pass play percentage of 26%. This year, 54th out of 69 teams. They've gone from 7th best big play passes, going from 7th best to 54th out of 69. Their numbers of pass plays that go bust is up. They were 16th in terms of not having a lot of bust plays throwing the ball last year. They were 16th last year in reducing bad passing plays. This year, they're 40th. So on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And a couple things about Brady Cook, if you don't mind, because I think this is important. And no, I'm not putting anything on him, everything on him, I should say, because I'm not sure what Kirby Moore is doing with this passing game, with these slow developing, long developing routes. Where's the quick passing game? You're not protecting Cook as well as maybe you did last year. It seems to be a really predictable, almost one-dimensional passing game, so it's not all on Brady Cook, but Brady Cook's not playing well, and that's all there is to it. All right, last year, passing attempts of 20-plus yards in the air, right? He completed 47%, and his grade from Pro Football Focus was a really nice grade, 93. 47% with a 93 grade last season on passes that travel 20-plus yards in the air. This season so far, 6 out of 24. That's a 25% completion rate. And his grade is down 20 points to 73. 47 completion percentage last year on deeper throws, 47% last year, 25% this year. The grade goes from 93 to 73. He's also the productivity in the medium passing game, 10 to 19 yards. He has slipped in those categories too, in terms of completion percentage, yards per attempt, and the grade from Pro Football Focus. These numbers are pretty concerning because something ain't right. And I've seen some of the good writers who cover the team and good people online who covered the team. The other thing that's really changed with Brady Cook is that he was a genuine threat in the running game, whether it be, he gets a pass rush, he breaks away, gets something out of nothing, does a good job. He was good in design runs, really nice in design runs. So let me give you a couple numbers on this. And this is the best number of them all, I think. The times this year where Brady Cook, when something breaks down and he takes off, he's got a success rate of about 12%, right? Last year it was 26%. I mean, that's a big, big drop off in terms of really being an asset, being able to run the ball and salvage plays that, when you go back to pass, there's nothing there and you got to go. You got to get out of trouble. You got to get out of dodge. That's really, really, really a huge, huge drop from last year. Even design running plays, like last year, he had a lot of them. This year, he's only got like 7, 15 plus yards when he takes off. Way down in terms of the rate from last season. And there's more of this, on scrambles. Again, it's just the percentage of success when he scrambles is down, way down. So the accuracy is really a concern. The accuracy has deteriorated in a substantial way. And then you expect to see him be a guy who can run and take off and hurt defenses that way. That hasn't happened either. Listen, Brady Cook's a heck of a competitor. He's a heck of a guy. He's a native St. Louisan. So, yeah, I'm a little biased. And I thought he had an excellent year last season. I don't know what's happened. You don't know what's happened. Maybe the coaching staff doesn't know what's happened. Maybe the offensive coordinator has changed things. I don't know what's up. What I know is that Mizzou had one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the power conferences last year, and that's backed up by stats. This year, I'm going to be polite and just say mediocre, okay? So Mizzou's got a lot to fix, and I'm going to repeat this and then I'll shut up. I think most of us expected them to fix a lot of these things when they had 2 weeks to get ready for the Aggies. That game was a disaster. So I ain't going to talk about them playoff chances and all that. That should be banned if you're a Mizzou fan. Now it's free speech. You can if you want. But, before you sit down and start talk about, well, we got to win this game. This has got to happen. Oh, we can't afford this. Hey, that team has to lose. These teams got to get knocked off. But we can still do it. I'm not saying it's impossible. But you know what? The only thing that matters if you're looking at probabilities, your probabilities are going to be zilch unless you start playing much, much better football with your pass rush, your pass defense, your offensive line play, your quarterback play. And I think the receivers could do a better job and quit worrying about how much respect or attention you're getting. You had a chance to earn a lot of respect at Texas A&M yesterday. You had a chance to earn a lot of positive attention yesterday. And you failed miserably. You failed embarrassingly. So quit worrying about how you're perceived nationally. Take care of your own business, period. Get better and keep it quiet. Nobody wants to hear after that game anyone caterwauling about lack of respect or whatever. So, all right, I feel better for saying all this stuff. I hope I didn't go too long, but and hopefully, well, UMass next week. Were you mad at me if I say I don't care about that game? I would care if they would lose that game, but I don't think that'll happen. Famous last words. Listen, thank you for watching, and hopefully some better performances are ahead for Mizzou. They're going to need it. You take care. Have a good rest of the Sunday.